For this second video of the sandbox series, we're going to start by importing external object into the sandbox scene, which is going to allow us to visualize how to set up properly each and every object to later on be able to fully customize the sandbox scene itself. Let's get started by clicking the library and go under Asset and Import, and inside the sandbox package that you've received, you receive some DAE file and as well as some texture. We're going to get started and select Suzanne here, and we're going to bring in a familiar face. We're going to open it up, and what I'm going to do, I am going to disable create a new group for each asset type, as I'm going to work at the root here of my project. Under material, the first object that I'm going to import will show you how to reuse an existing material that is already inside the shared assets here in the library. So I'm going to cancel the use of a material. Animation, I do not have animation. No skeleton as well. And visual scene, I am going to place my Suzanne on the right depth to be able to cast and receive shadow, and I'm going to place it as well on geometry, so I can actually output the normal and output the base color of my object. I am going to import, and right now I'm going to enter edit mode of my first render layer, either from the menu here, or I can simply press Shift and 1. With my Suzanne selected here, let's switch to wireframe by pressing Tab. With my Suzanne selected here, I am going to go under Properties, and I'm going to go under Static Mesh. I'm going to select the first level of detail, and for the render layer right depth, I'm going to go search my material that it's called right depth. So like that, Suzanne can cast and receive shadow as well. Next, I am going to select the geometry render layer, and now I need to assign a material that is going to allow me to extract the color and the normal information as well as roughness and metallic. And for that, I'm going to go search my plane material, which is part of my shared asset of my library. Right now, if I push spacebar to see the render result, I'm going to click here on play so I can navigate using my WASD. I am having assigned on my Suzanne here the default plane material that is assigned. And what I want to do is actually change these parameters. If we have a look at the plane material, let's type it in here, plane, we are having a bunch of uniform variables that allow us to change the roughness, metallic, and base color. As I showed in previous video, I will do it again. I'm going to go under Object all the way down to Member Variable, and I'm going to create these variables to change the uniform of this specific object and do not use the default values set by the material. So the first one, I'm going to call it base color, and I'm going to specify that this variable is a uniform value. I am going to add float, and I am going to call it roughness, and I'm also going to specify that it's a uniform value of the range of 0 to 1. And finally, I'm going to create a last one that I'm going to call metallic, and I'm also going to specify it's a uniform from the range of 0 to 1. And now I can fully change the color of this specific object without affecting any of the walls here, because the walls are also using the plane material. I can simply tweak here my Suzanne only, and if your objects are only requiring coloring, like in this case, we can do this way. You don't have to create a new material or duplicate a new material and start, tweaking only the base color, roughness, and metallic value for that specific material. What you can do is simply add them, these uniform, as a member variable, and then tweak them on a per object basis. Now, with that done, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to move my Suzanne away. On the outliner, I'm going to make sure that she is not static, so I can push her a little bit here on the left. And this time we're going to import another asset, another object that is going to be a skeletal mesh. So with my NRGsandbox selected, I'm going to go under Asset, Import, and inside the NRGsandbox package directory that you have extracted, now locate the xbot.dae. I am going to open that up. Geometries, yes. Materials, I'm going to turn it off again because I'm going to show you another way of adding material to a specific object. Animation, yes, I want to import animation because it is a skeletal mesh, but I do not want to happen the animation to the Suzanne object, so I'm going to click here to turn that off. Skeletons, yes, my XBot does have a skeleton, and I am going to do the same thing as I did for my Suzanne. I'm going to place my bot on the right depth render layer, and I'm going to place it on the geometry render layer as well, because I want my XBot to cast and receive shadow and have basically PBR lighting that is applied on it and the geometry render layer. I'm going to click import, and right away I can see that my robot is placed. And if I click spacebar, it is not ready to set up yet. What we need to do is the same way we did with Suzanne. Jump to edit first render layer, shift and 1, select the XBot, and under this time properties and skeletal mesh, you can see that we have now two primitives. We have the joints and we have the limb. So under the render layer right depth, we are going to for both these primitive, we are going to use the right depth render layer. And right away I can see now that I start having shadow, but I do not have a color feedback. So for my geometry, what I'm going to do, I am going to go under lib this time, material, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate twice my plane material here. I am then going to drag and drop them under the root of my sandbox. And now I'm going to call them, I'm going to call one joints, and I'm going to call the other one limbs as the same name of the primitive. I got joints, I got limbs. I'm going to drag and drop joints to joints, and I'm going to drag and drop limbs to limbs. And now I am having my XBot with two material applied on it, one for the limb and one for the joint. But now what I want to do is to change the specific color of these one. We have seen how to change the specific color for a unique object. Now this time we're going to do it on a material level. So I'm going to go under properties and material, and I'm going to click that out, and I'm going to drag and drop my limb here, and I'm going to change the color, the roughness. Let's put it at fully white. It look better like that, I think. And let's put it fully white, and we don't want it too shiny and not too reflective as well, something like that. Let's say 0.125, and I always like to round things up, 0.75. And now we're going to edit joints, and let's say that the joints, we're going to put them this time black. So as you can see here, I am editing the default value on a per material basis, not a per object basis like I did. So basically now these color and roughness and metallic value are embedded for that specific material. I'm going to change here a bit to make it a bit more shiny here and a bit more reflective. Let's say that 0.625 and 0.125. And I'm all set. Basically now I have two different object, one that is a static object, the other one is a skeletal mesh. And since we have a skeletal mesh, let's start running the animation right away. I'm going to expand the library here, go search my timeline editor under with my object selected here. I'm going to go under its first action, and I'm going to click play, and right away I am having my robot that is now fully integrated into my scene and start having a animation running, as you can see here. And that will conclude the first part of this two-part video. In the next video, we will really customize a specific PBR asset to fit the workflow of the NRG Sandbox.